If you're thinking about buying a home in South Torrance, then you're going to want to know the real pros and cons of buying in that area. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So check it out. This is Ben Larson with Larson Realty Group. And make sure you stick around to the end. One of the cons I'm going to talk about is something you really need to know if you're thinking about buying in the area. It's very specific to this area. We'll go into that a little bit more. And now let's get started. So the first pro I'm going to talk about are the schools. We do have top-rated schools in South Torrance, very highly desirable. We've got South High is the high school. So we've got South High is the high school. And then you're going to have Richardson Middle School and Cali Mayer Middle School. And then there are 4 elementary schools. So you're going to have Arnold and Seaside that feed into Cali Mayer. And then you're going to have Walteria and Riviera Elementary that feed into Richardson. And so then, of course, those 2 schools go into South High. And South High, very, very well known for sports, a lot of parent involvement throughout the schools. So just a really great environment, atmosphere, academically, athletically, socially. It's part of the reason the schools are so desirable. All right, so let's get on to pro number 2. And this one's going to be the weather. So the weather here, you're going to notice if you're familiar with the coast, marine layer, the fog, you're going to get a lot of that when you're in Redondo, Hermosa, right along the beach. But as you get in a little bit and you get into South Torrance, you're heading down PCH, you're in the fog, you drive out of it. So, just things just open up and you see the sun. So it's a nice little microclimate where it's warmer, it's sunny typically, but you're still not as hot as you may be when you get a little more east in some of the cities that are a little more east. So you will have the fog creeping in a little bit, but usually, when you're driving in South Torrance, if you're going towards the beach, you will see kind of like a wall of fog that you're driving into. But in Torrance itself, pretty nice. It's a little warmer, these past few years, so you do need air conditioning most times, but there are definitely plenty of days where you get a nice ocean breeze and you don't need to run the air. All right, and so the last pro number 3 is going to be kind of a combination of lifestyle and location. And so they kind of go hand in hand. If you like to be outdoors and be active, South Torrance is a good location for that. You've got the beach really close by, actually so close it is the beach. A lot of people don't realize there is a Torrance beach. Part of the reason they don't realize that is because the address is Redondo Beach. So there's a section of the Riviera that is a Redondo Beach address, but technically it is South Torrance. It's Torrance Schools, Torrance PD, Torrance Services. So people don't realize that, but that is part of, you've got the lifestyle, you've got the beach lifestyle actually in Torrance. And so that is something to be aware of. If you're watching this and you actually want to be in Redondo, well, if you're looking in that Riviera area, it may be a Redondo address, but you better check and see, is it Redondo Schools if that's where you want to be. In other parts having to do with the lifestyle, commuting wise, it is, if you're deep and you're, in that Riviera area or somewhere south and west on the part of South Torrance, you are going to be a little ways from the freeway. But if you're in the eastern part, you're over by Crenshaw, you're actually not too far. That's not a bad place. You can get over to the freeway a little quicker when you're over there, maybe going up to the 405 or even over to the 110. A lot of good employers in the area. So sometimes, there's plenty of jobs where you may not even have to commute out of the area. So lots of good jobs as well. And then just a little bit, a fun community. If you've heard, it's in the Seaside area. It's right on the edge of Redondo and the Riviera. It's called Candy Cane Lane. It's really big over the holidays, lots of holiday lights, traffic backs up, people, it's bumper to bumper driving through there. So you want to avoid it if you're not going in there and you need to drive to that area. But getting in there, it's a ton of fun. People will park and they'll walk in, or neighbors will walk from neighborhoods that are close by. People are selling hot chocolate, or lots of great lights and lots of fun. So it's something definitely worth checking out. They also have a great big draw over Halloween. Tons of people will park nearby and they'll go in there. Everything's really well decorated. If you're going to buy in there, you need to be aware, if you're buying at different times of the year, that those things happen, because it does get really, really crazy. It actually can be a little challenging to get in and out of your house, but something to be aware of, whether that's something you might like or maybe not. In this case, it's in the pros, but for some people, technically it could be a con. All right, speaking of cons, so I mentioned it a little bit earlier, the pros, but I alluded to it. Traffic can be a little bit of a challenge, and the location. So a lot of South Torrance is not known to be freeway close. So it's going to take you a little while to get north of the 405 or to get over east of the 110, not just because it's distance wise, but traffic gets pretty busy. If you're trying to get on PCH or you're trying to go north on Hawthorne or Crenshaw, traffic backs up. So it's a good distance in the first place. And then because there's traffic, it actually is going to make it even longer. So if you're looking to commute to the airport a lot, or you're commuting to downtown, not always ideal. So just something to be aware of on that. Now let's get into con number 2. So this one is really, it's kind of a lifestyle thing. So if you're looking for something with a lot of nightlife and a lot of activity, things that are open late, South Torrance probably isn't for you. But it's a quieter area, not incredibly walkable. So it's a little bit of a quieter area. So you are usually going to have to drive if you're going somewhere, or if you're going out for some drinks or for dinner and drinks or something, then, always definitely take an Uber or something like that. But if you're looking for something, local that you can walk to, if you're close to the Riviera, you'll have that. But most parts of South Torrance, you're not going to get it. The beauty of it is there's a lot of that close by. You do have the Riviera, Hermosa, a lot of places that you can get to pretty quickly, especially just hop in an Uber and there you are. So, but just be aware that you're not going to get a lot of that actually in South Torrance itself, if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so con number 3. Now, this one is the one I was talking about earlier that you definitely want to make sure you pay attention to and you stay around for. So hopefully you stayed around, and I appreciate that. But this one is really talking about real estate related things with the types of homes and an area that just something you need to be aware of. So just talking a little bit about the homes. They're typically 50s and 60s build. A lot of them were 3 beds and 1 bath, or a half bath or maybe a 3/4. But they weren't big. They're 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 square feet. So, back then, they didn't need as much space. They didn't want home offices. They didn't have walk-in closets. So getting into these homes, you could have bedrooms that are at 10 by 10. They got this tiny little closet, and that's it. Those are the 2 extra bedrooms. The main bedroom might be a little bit bigger. It may not even have a bathroom attached to it, or it might have a small 3/4 bath. So just something to be aware of. Originally, a lot of them didn't have air conditioning either. So that may be something you need to take into account. But there's plenty of houses that have been redone or added on or rebuilt. So you're not every home in that area is going to be like that, because a lot of them have been done, but there are original ones that are still there that you might end up with, or you might even want to go after, and then you can put your own touches on it there. The other thing I wanted to talk about was what we call the soil section. And so this is a part of South Torrance. It's basically from South High over to Hawthorne. So PCH on the south and Lomita on the north, and really kind of Cali Mayor until you hit Anza. That whole section right in there. And that's what we call the soil section. It's expansive soil. So the soil expands and contracts based on the how much moisture it has in it. So you can imagine what that would do to a house and a foundation. It's going to move it up and down as it expands and contracts. So just something to be aware of. So not every home is affected, but a lot of them are. So you just need to be aware of it going into it. And when you buy, there's mitigation things that you can do, and then the city actually requires you to do it in some cases. So just see what that is. A lot of times it's just removing dirt as much as you can right up against the home and having more concrete, so that way there's not as much dirt. That will expand and contract, and you got to keep the water levels pretty even so it doesn't really dry out or it doesn't really get saturated. So there's things that can be done to mitigate it. And when you go into a home, you'll see some cracking, and that you just have to figure out what are the costs to fix something like that, and then you can mitigate it and hopefully not have to deal with much of that moving forward. So one thing to keep in mind on that topic is, because of that, those homes actually are a little bit less expensive than other homes in that area, maybe even just a block or 2 away. So that could be, to stay with the theme here, that could be a bit of a pro for that area, not just a con. So I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying don't buy there. Just be aware of it. You can do research, talk to an agent, get more details, and just make yourself aware of what that's all about. Okay, so those are the real pros and cons of buying in South Torrance. My name is Ben Larson with the Larson Realty Group. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you want to explore other information on other local areas, definitely check out the video that's here on the screen, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.